The sonnet, from Petrarch to Shakespeare. Poetry, as you know, has existed as long as there have been storytellers. And before the written word, storytellers used various poetic devices in order to help them memorize and remember stories that they wanted to pass down from generation to generation, almost exactly word for word. Some of the poetry and poetic devices we've studied thus far this semester include the first assignment you had, which was looking at a couple of the Psalms written by David in the Old Testament. Later, we read Gilgamesh, which is one of the earliest epics that we know of, Homer's Odyssey, another epic poem, and then most recently, Dante's Inferno. During the Renaissance period, the sonnet became among the most complex and highest forms of poetry. Petrarchan sonnet. An Italian scholar and poet, Francesco Petrarch, studied the poetry of medieval troubadours that were written in sonnet form, and these sonnets followed a very strict set of rules. There was a specific number of lines in the poem, 14 lines. No fewer, no more, exactly 14 lines. There is a very specific meter or rhythm, and in the case of the sonnet, that would be iambic pentameter, which refers to the rhythm of the syllables and the number of syllables in each line. For a review of iambic pentameter, just cut and paste the URL that I've posted at the bottom of this page. Also, sonnets generally follow an intricate rhyme scheme, and they almost always express romantic love. Petrarch took the sonnet form and perfected it. He took it to the next level, and the Petrarchan sonnet is now known as the Italian sonnet, or by Petrarch's name, Petrarchan. Petrarch's sonnets were written primarily about his great and unrequited love for Laura, and his poems or sonnets consist of the following characteristics. There are two main parts to a Petrarchan sonnet, an octave and a sestet. The octave is the first 8 lines of the poem, and then the sestet are the closing 6 lines. He follows a rhyme scheme in the octave of A, B, B, A, and then repeated A, B, B, A. The rhyme scheme of the sestet is C, D, E, C, D, E. The octave, or the first 8 lines in an Italian sonnet, present a problem. The sestet then develops an idea from that problem. In this sonnet, Sonnet 159, we have an example of one of Petrarch's most famous sonnets. In what bright realm, what sphere of radiant thought did nature find the model whence she drew that delicate, dazzling image where we view here on this earth what she in heaven wrought? What fountain haunting nymph, what dryad sought in grove such golden tresses ever threw upon the gust? What heart such virtues knew, though her chief virtue with my death is fraught? He looks in vain for heavenly beauty, he who never looked upon her perfect eyes, the vivid blue orbs turned brilliantly. He does not know how love yields and denies. He only knows who knows how sweetly she can talk and laugh, the sweetness of her sighs. So in this, the first 8 lines, the octave, you see the rhyme scheme. The last words of each line follow the rhyme scheme of A, B, B, A, and then again A, B, B, A. Thought, drew, view, wrought, sought, through, knew, fraught. And the problem established here is, how did nature create such a beautiful and virtuous woman? Then the second half of the sonnet, the sestet, follows the rhyme scheme C, D, C, and then inverted D, C, D. In other words, we have he, eyes, Lee, denies, she, sighs. And the resolution to the first part of the sonnet is, only he who saw her can know how perfect and wonderful she is, or what heavenly beauty looks like here on earth. Did have great love for this woman, Laura. Now, the Shakespearean sonnet comes a little bit later. And that's a result of the English wanting their own style of little songs or sonnets. So the poets took Petrarch's model and adapted it for their own use. William Shakespeare was so successful with this form that the English sonnet has his name, Shakespearean sonnet. He wrote 154 of these highly complex poems. What Shakespeare did to the sonnet to move it from Petrarchan to English or Shakespearean, what he kept was the basic form. All of Shakespeare's sonnets are exactly 14 lines, and the rhythm is always iambic pentameter. What he changed, instead of having an octave and a sestet, he uses 3 quatrains and then followed by a concluding couplet. So 3 lines of 4 and then a closing 2 lines. And his rhyme scheme is A, B, A, B, C, D, C, D, E, F, E, F, and G, G. Now, Shakespeare had a great sense of humor. And his sonnets are still about love, and some of them are in the traditional romantic sense, but he likes to upset the old conventions of romantic or courtly love. And instead he employs a bit of irony and writes about common everyday folk, not gods and goddesses and kings and queens and great and royal people. Also, he makes us wait until the closing couplet to resolve the sonnet or resolve the problem that he is exploring within the rest of the poem. The woman in this sonnet, one of his most famous, is far from perfect, but if you read through and you get to the end, that closing couplet, the question is, does he love her any less? And this sonnet, my mistress' eyes are nothing like the sun. Coral is far more red than her lips red. If snow be white, why then her breasts are dun. If hairs be wire, black wires grow on her head. I have seen roses damasked red and white, but no such roses see I in her cheeks. And in some perfumes is there more delight than in the breath that from my mistress reeks. I love to hear her speak, yet well I know that music hath a far more pleasing sound. I grant I never saw a goddess go. My mistress, when she walks, treads on the ground. And yet, by heavens, I think my love as rare as any she belied with false compare. So, the irony in Sonnet 130 are, well, her breast is brown, her hair is wiry and stiff and black, she has pale cheeks, she obviously has bad breath, she has less than a musical voice, and she has a heavy, graceless walk. But notice the rhyme scheme, and count the lines and syllables, and note at the very end, very heartfelt, ironic twist. Sonnet 18. This is a diagram here on the left of what many consider the greatest love poem ever written. Sonnet 18 also demonstrates how Shakespeare uses his trademark irony. Compare you to a summer day? No way, you're so much better, let me tell you why. And then with the surprise ending that completely takes your breath away. In other words, as long as people read this poem, they will know of the narrator's love for thee. So we have, shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate. Rough winds do shake the darling buds of May, and summer's lease hath all too short a date. Sometime too hot the eye of heaven shines, and often is his gold complexion dimmed, and every fair from fair sometime declines, by chance or nature's changing course untrimmed. But thy eternal summer shall not fade, nor lose possession of that fair thou owest, nor shall death brag thou wanderest in his shade, when in eternal lines to time thou growest. So long as men can breathe, or eyes can see, so long lives this, and this gives life to thee. The illustrations here demonstrate the iambic pentameter, 5 measures, 10 syllables each, a pattern of unstressed, stressed. There are 4 lines, 3 separate quatrains, lines of 4, following the rhyme scheme of A, B, C, D, C, D, E, F, and then the rhyming couplet at the end, G, G. So these are the terms that you need to remember regarding Shakespeare and Petrarch and sonnet. You need to be able to distinguish the difference between the Petrarchan or Italian sonnet and the Shakespearean or English sonnet. Iambic pentameter, rhyme scheme, octave and sestet, the difference, and quatrain and couplet, and the number of lines in each of the quatrains, and then finally at the couplet. So that is Shakespeare and Petrarch in less than 15 minutes. And enjoy yourself. Read a few of the lines that are here on the right of the screen. These are familiar, what we could consider cliche, but they were not cliche in Shakespeare's day, because these are all the lines that Shakespeare contributed to the English language.